This video has been made possible by Rebusfarm, the professional render service. Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 in our introduction to 3D animation in Maya. Well, in the first video we talked about the interface, the menus, the buttons, and so forth, and in this video we're going to talk about keyframing. All right? Now, before talking about a lot of theory, what we need to do is set up our interface as we've been taught in video 1. So I'm going to go up here, make sure I got animation selected, so I have this menu available. I'm going to open up my channel box by hitting this button on the right there, and I'm going to set up my slider. All right. Now down here in the slider, we need to do a couple of things. I'm going to take this left value and set that to 30, and take the right value and set that to 100. Now by doing that, what I'm saying is I want a total of 100 frames in my entire animation, and I want 30 visible on my screen. So if I take this slider right here, and you can see it's going from frame 1 to frame 30. If I move that to the right, I'll see more frames here, and if I move it back, I'll see less. All right? Okay, so we're all set. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to take an object. So let's take a polygon cube, and that starts on the center of our grid as usual. And what I'm going to do is hit W to move it and move it over to the left. Now when I do that, you see in our channel box that something has changed. This translate X value used to be 0 when it was sitting on the center of our grid. I moved it to the left, so now it's minus 11,433. Now this is pretty important because when we keyframe an animation, what we're doing is we're locking down an object in a certain value, translate value, rotate value, scale value, and so forth. So it's remembered for future reference. So we have our cube set there, but we didn't lock it down yet because we didn't keyframe that position just yet. All right. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to make sure we're on frame 1. I'm just going to click on this guy. So we're on frame 1, and it's selected, and I'm going to hit S on my keyboard. When I hit S on my keyboard, a couple of things happen. First of all, you see the red line there, okay? And you see the red line here, which means that a keyframe has been created. Now, just to prove to you that this position is locked down, if I move this, let's say, somewhere over here, and I jump back to frame 1, it's going to jump back to that position, okay? If I move this out here and up here and over here, and again, I jump back to frame 1, boom, there it is. Okay, so that's what it basically does. Now that we have our first keyframe, I want to start my animation. So let's say I want my cube to end up somewhere on the right over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to left click and drag on my timeline, and I'm going to choose a frame where I want it to end up. Let's say frame 24. Okay, now once I'm on frame 24, I'm going to drag my cube, I'm going to bring it over here. And once I'm happy with that location, a couple of things I can do. One is I can hit S on my keyboard, as I did before, to keyframe that. Or I can go into my channel box and I can specifically keyframe the value that I just changed, which in this case is translate X. You can see that is the only thing that I've changed. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to key selected. Now, once I do that, again, something changes. You see that I got a little red marker next to my translate X, and everything else is pink. Now, what does that mean? Well, if I jump to frame 19, everything is pink. If I go to 9, everything is pink, and everything is pink, okay? So what that means is if everything is pink, it is telling us on this object, somewhere on the timeline, there are keyframes, but just not specifically on this location, right? If I jump to a specific frame where it's keyframed, in this case, we see only the translate X as in red because I manually keyframed that one. So I know there's a key on that. And if we jump to frame 1, you can see that all of them are red because I keyframed everything, okay? So that's basically how you do that. So if I want to have, let's say, a movement in between, right? So we'll go to, I don't know, frame 12 or so. And you can see that it's moving towards its position on frame 24. And what I'm going to do right here is I'm just going to pull that way up and maybe move it a little bit this way. Okay. Now I'm going to hit S again, because what I did now is I changed the translate Y and the translate Z, two values. Okay. I can again select it, right click and set key, or I can simply hit the S on my keyboard, and as you can see now everything is keyed here. So if we jump back to our frame 1 and I hit play, and I'll jump back to frame 1 and do it manually so you can see what's going on. So the cube is going up and towards us. And then as we move forward, it's not going down, it's just going straight forward. And that makes sense because on this frame, we only keyframed translate X. We didn't keyframe it to be on the same position as our starting point, just X. So that's important, okay? So this is the basics of animation. I'll show you another one just so you understand. We'll take a new cube, and all our keyframes are now gone because they are on this guy, not on that guy. So each object has its own timeline, so I can animate these independently. I'll go back to frame 1 on this guy, and what I'll do with that one is something totally different, okay? So that one's selected. I'm going to S to keyframe that. I'm going to move to, let's say, 18, and don't mind this guy. What we'll actually do is we'll hit Control H to hide it for a sec. Okay, so I'm on frame 18. I'm going to hit W to move that up. We're going to hit R to scale it, and we're going to hit E to rotate it and rotate it. Now, when I'm happy with all that stuff, I'm going to hit S on my keyboard, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, click on frame 1. I'm going to right click, go to copy that keyframe. And then I'm going to go over here to, let's say, 29, right click and paste and paste. All right, cool. So I'm going to jump back to frame 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit play and see what happens, okay? Okay. So what you see right here is that your initial cube here, it's doing exactly the same as before. And if we scrub through that, it's moving from the left to the right and stopping there. And our other cube in the middle here, what I did is I keyframed everything on that center position. So this guy. What I did is I pulled it up, I scaled it up, and I rotated it. You can see all that is going on. And what I did next is I copied my initial position key over here. So what it's doing is it's returning back to its starting point, position, scale, and rotation value. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Now, there's one thing I didn't talk about yet, and what we'll do is I'll just select all this stuff. And that is auto keying. And that is something you need to be very careful with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new cube. I'll hit W and I'll move it over. And in your animation preference settings, but also available through this button down here, this round button, you can turn on auto key. Okay. Now, what that does is if I'm on my first position here and I S to keyframe that, if I move or change a value that already has a keyframe, and in this case all of them, as you can see here, it will automatically create a new key. So if I move forward, and actually let's, hang on, hit Control Z. I should actually go to the frame first, so let's go to frame 15. If I move forward and I release the object, it creates an automatic key on frame 15. So any value that has changed while there is already a key set on that value will create a new key automatically. Now that saves you a lot of time pressing set key and so forth or hitting S, but you have to be careful with that because sometimes keyframes are created when you don't want them to be created. Okay. So yeah, that's basically it. It's a short introduction, but hopefully that will help you to understand keyframing a little bit better. And in our next video, we're going to talk about the graph editor. Okay, see you guys then. Bye. Well, thanks for watching. And before you go, please hit that MH button to subscribe. Okay, see you guys next time. Bye.